Welcome to Creators Cafe. I'm your host, Jessica Payne. I'm a performer, performance coach, and multi-hyphenate creator. I'm going to be bringing you conversations with some of my favorite creators where we talk about the sublime and the specifics of the creative journey. So grab a drink, get cozy. Let's go. My guest, Tehran, is a comedian, actor, and entertainer. Tehran has a residency at the Laugh Factory on Sunset in Hollywood. He was born in D.C., but named after the capital of Iran. He leans into his half-Black, half-Persian background in his comedy. Tehran has a law degree and a background in economics and political science, so his comedy on racial relations is incisive and inclusive. Tehran is a TV and radio host. He's also acted in several films, including Dane Cook's American Typecast, which I really enjoyed. He also regularly tours with Maz Jobrani, and I got to see them both recently at Flappers. Tehran's comedy pulls in audiences with light jokes, teasing the bro in the front row, and then he suddenly Aikidos the conversation, and he's got a take on the Middle East conflict that I've never heard before. He inspires me how he devotes so much time and energy and attention to shows and tours and fundraising with a focus on world peace and uniting people through laughter. Please enjoy my conversation with my friend, Tehran. Welcome, Tehran, to Creators Cafe. Cheers.
I just cheers. Felt official.
Yeah. And you're drinking water today?
Yeah. I don't drink alcohol.
Okay.
So a lot of people always ask me why, and it really comes down to it's expensive. I don't know how people can afford. It's not like have you ever met someone with a cocaine habit and you're like, what do you do? Like, cocaine's not cheap.
That's
okay?
funny. Yeah.
It's not cheap. Like, wow. Like, good for you, you know?
You're sustaining your own habit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how is this a thing? I'm barely able to afford the addiction I have to food and sustenance. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So I've never drank alcohol, and I'm not much of a, I guess I drink soda, juice, I guess, but water. Yeah. I've never had coffee, and I've never had, what are those energy drinks?
Oh, yeah.
I've never had an energy drink because they are liquid cocaine.
Yeah, that's insane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to stay up? I already have problems sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to be awake I've never even understood people that do, like, K or any of those drugs that, like, make you sleepy. Like, why?
That's so funny.
Yeah, like, you're at a party and you're, like, out, and then on the other side, you're, like, at home and you want to be super hyper. Like, what is going on?
That's so funny. Well, you seem to have like a pretty good like motoring through life. Like, you seem to be at a good speed naturally.
Yeah,
so
I just let the river of life take me down.
I love it.
I'm just like, yo, you know what? This is just, I'm going downhill. I'm not gonna try to swim upstream. It's just not me.
I think I go really hard the other way. I am definitely coffee girl. I mean, I named my podcast after it, Creators Cafe.
You're like coffee.
That is my only like true addiction.
It's you know what? I think, and you know where we all read something somewhere because of TikTok and Instagram, and we're all experts on everything.
Yeah.
Somewhere where coffee's I know it's the most traded commodity, but the idea that it's the most used drug in the world is caffeine or just coffee. As like everyone's addicted to coffee.
Yeah, definitely.
So good for you for being ahead of the trend. Like, you were addicted before everyone else knew they should be addicted.
Yeah, I was like, I see this, I see the future.
What happens when you don't drink coffee?
I recently learned I have ADHD, like I was undiagnosed. And so it turns out I've just been self-medicating for years. Yeah. And I've tried a couple of different drugs, and this like coffee plus like the tiniest little bit of some stimulant is actually the best. And
so like coffee and Adderall, like if you mix Adderall in your coffee.
I try to space it out because if not, I get a little manic. And I do like half decaf now. So it's okay.
So now you're like trying to temper your own addiction.
Yeah.
By doubling up your addiction. Like, you're like, I do half decaf, so I drink twice as much.
So that I can have the Adderall.
It makes sense.
It's I mean, under medical supervision, but I gotta say, it's like life-changing to me because I've always had a creative mind, but I'm very good at the like big kind of like see all the constellations in the sky as opposed to like spotlight focus unless I'm super interested in something. And now like the Adderall actually really helps with that side.
A lot of people in the entertainment business, whether they're diagnosed or not, do use Adderall.
Yeah.
I know like a lot of people on, I won't name the shows, SNL, but they like,
Oh, I'm sure with that
because
schedule.
that schedule.
Jeez, yeah.
Another thing I've never drank, I've never smoked, I've never tried any drugs, like
Yeah.
including marijuana, because people just assume, I guess maybe my hairstyle. I don't know what it is that they always assume I smoke.
Yeah.
Plus, I always seem high all the time.
You're calm, and nobody's
I'm always like,
calm in
Yo,
LA.
what's up, bro? And then I've never tried any Adderall-y thing or
Yeah.
anything. I feel like I don't know what I would be like.
That's really interesting. I'm like really sensitive to medicine, so I'm pretty hesitant to try it, but it really has helped me a lot.
I mean,
so
I'm not
it's
against
good.
medication.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like where people are like, oh my God, no, I use, organic tea leaves if I have cancer. I'm like, no. Shoot me the chemo. Like I'm not against medication.
Yeah.
I just don't utilize it or use it. It's
Yeah.
actually the reason I don't drink alcohol is specifically when I was a kid, one time, either my parent or a sibling was drinking NyQuil, they were sick. So as a kid, I tried it. Like I was like just gonna try, and it was so bad that it was so like I still remember I
Yeah.
still get this when I think of it. Lose everything off of alcohol. Yeah.
That NyQuil saved your life, man. That's
A
great.
lot of comedians don't drink. A lot of people don't know this. Dane Cook, everyone's favorite frat boy, has never drank alcohol.
Really?
That is a real thing. Chris D'Elia, everyone's favorite possible criminal but comedian, and when he's at the top,
Yeah.
he's never had alcohol.
See, I know so many creatives that are now sober because I think that like sensitivity that comes with being creative leads a lot of people to self-medicate in whatever the ways are. But that's interesting that there's so many people that
Yeah, a lot of comedians.
never drank. I never knew.
And for me, it's because I like my train of thought, my
Yeah.
natural way of thinking.
Yeah.
I would, in the way I see the world for myself, and I wouldn't want that to change.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
It's just beautiful, narcissistic, however you want to look at it.
I think
that's
beautiful.
the way it works. It's
Yeah.
like, I think that the way I look at the world is right, so I never want to change that.
Yeah.
Kind of like how everyone thinks they're always right. So I'm just on that train. That's my ahead of the
okay.
curve train. Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I'm probably really interested in how everybody else thinks. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I
but you're
literally
like
have a show
an
about it.
empathetic person. You care about people. Recently, you helped me with an audition that I had because you're so good at just training that actor mind, and you were like able to, I guess, bring out the best in me. So that's something you would do. I couldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I barely bring out the best in me, let alone other people. Like, I'm bringing out this is the mediocre me. This is me. Like, this, meh, you know.
I completely disagree. I see where you're coming from, but I just love how your viewpoint on the world shocks me and surprises me and makes me rethink things in a way that nobody else does.
I'll take it.
And I have to say, like, I was like a little nervous to talk to you, not because of any reason or anything you were going to say. I just feel like, you know how sometimes you're with somebody and you're like, oh fuck, they're so smart, I have to be on. And I was a little like, oh, I have to like, you're going to call me on my bullshit. And you're nice.
I know things, but it's also because I'm deranged. Like, I like knowing things. My friends, a lot of the comedians have this thing where they talk about like, who's more right, Tehran or Google? Tehran will be more right. You know?
Okay, so I feel like we're like 10 minutes in and I haven't started. So
Cheers.
Yeah, right. Let's start again. How do you think of yourself as a creator and as a creative?
As every creator and creative does, I think I'm absolutely brilliant. That's the idea. There takes an amount of delusion to be a creator.
Yeah.
And delusion has now become contagious because a lot of the world thinks they're creators and creatives when they're actually not. Okay. But the idea of being a creative and a creator is I'm delusional. I think in terms, or at least I think in terms that most people don't. I think of things that are, I see things in ways that people haven't looked at them until I bring them up.
Yeah.
That's what creators think. It's actually, you know how delusional creators are? They're so delusional that every time you see an award show and you always wonder, why do they forget everyone's names? It's because they're so delusional, they don't think that they need to thank anyone. When they're on stage, they're always like, I want to thank God and I want to thank my parents because those are the people that they've been practicing thanking their whole lives. But then they forget Barbara and Johnny and Jimmy and Sarah and Kara. Why? Because to them, all those names are interchangeable. It didn't matter who their team was. They were going to be on that stage no matter what. That's the delusion it takes. There are no statues or awards given to sane people. Because if you were sane, you would never do these things. You would definitely never enter entertainment. You would never enter Hollywood. You would never get on stage.
Yeah.
You will never put yourself out there. You would never deserve or want following on any social media platform. If you're sane, none of these things actually appeal to you. It's an amount of delusion.
Yeah.
You know, it's the delusion to think that you can walk on water, so much so that you actually become Jesus and walk on water.
Yeah.
It's that magic. That's why we call it Hollywood magic.
Yeah.
It's movie magic.
But it does feel like magic. So it feeds the delusion, for sure.
Of course, you're creating a world which other people want to enter. George Lucas comes up with this idea of this, lone wolf warrior of Star Wars and Luke Skywalker, so much so that people dress up like this for entire conferences, like Star Wars Con or whatever, and they have they enter this world of something that he just thought of probably as a kid and then brought to life.
Yeah.
It's magical in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And it is like that idea of something from nothing and like pulling something from the ether and creating the motivation and the movement that you bring other people along. It's fascinating.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Doesn't matter how transphobic J.K. Rowling is. Harry Potter is amazing. Even for them days. Even them days like it. Like, it's just, how do you come up? This is the idea. I think of something in my head, and as a stand-up comedian, I'm able to communicate that effectively to the point where you, as the audience member, laughs. Right? That's difficult. I, as a director or as a writer or producer, think of a story in my head. I had a dream, right? And then I create it so that on screen, it's as close to the thing that I thought of in my head as possible. Mm-hmm. Most of us wake up and have difficulties. Oh my gosh, I had a dream last night. What was it about? There was a frog. Like, we can barely explain that. How do you bring that to life so much so that other people see exactly what you saw? Yeah.
First of all, do you have really powerful dreams or do you not remember them?
I have some of the most boring dreams of all time. Like, my dream is I'm working at an office. Like, I have these dreams.
It's just like very realistic.
But my dreams are always just so realistic that when I have what people think are like, they would think of as scary dreams, I find them exciting. Like, I try not to wake up. And also in my dreams, because my brain, I feel like it never turns off, in my dreams, I know it's a dream. So when something goes wrong, I just reset. I don't know why. I'm just like, oh, okay, this one, okay, reset. No fear,
Yeah, I can do that too. But I have like movie dreams. Sometimes I wake up tired. It's like really great from the creative side, but I'm amazing. Like, I'm exhausted, man. I need a nap now.
The one thing about my dreams, and I feel like most people should think about this, I'm the best casting director ever. Like, the people I invent in my dreams, I'm like, where did I create this person? This person's not real. The people walking by or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm basing these off what? Oh, man. They were so realistic. Who am I? Ooh. I should cast,
I love that. Because in your storytelling, in your stand-up, you're so good at describing people and also kind of seeing things in people in the audience in real time. You definitely have that talent.
So maybe that's the thing. Maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe if I was a casting director.
You just like, you.
Yeah.
Here,
you.
now.
Perfect.
Nice.
I would have picked Chris Hemsworth. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, he's a good choice.
How good looking is that guy?
He is.
How good looking is Chris Hemsworth?
It's a little insane, right? That he's real, that he exists.
He's so good looking, he makes his good looking brothers look ugly. That's a real thing. I need to talk about that on stage, because that is a real thing. Chris Hemsworth is so good. I don't know why this just hit my head, but I saw something with Thor, and I was like, how good looking is this guy?
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah,
and then we were delusional enough to think we should also be in Hollywood. See what I mean?
I'm delusional enough to think we should be acting with him.
Yeah, like, why are we not?
He could be in my pilot. That's fine.
Yeah, he could be a co-star. He could be a recurring, maybe. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite shows of all time?
Ooh, I really do love like Star Trek. I like
Which one? Original?
Next Generation.
Captain Picard.
Yeah, totally. I think I like that. I grew up on a farm, so there wasn't like a lot. It was like a beautiful but small world, and I loved anything that kind of took me like to travel and to like big cultures and like.
Who was your favorite person on Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Picard. Yeah,
Picard.
There was like the empath was really cool. The doctors were cool, but I think
Troy and Dr. Crusher, and then the other one was They switched her out for like
exactly
season.
for the second season.
They fired her. They fired her from
and then
the
she
first
came
season
back
because I guess maybe Gene Roddenberry didn't like her.
Yeah.
They like butt heads, but then Gene Roddenberry died, which ended up being, rest in peace. He was the creator of Star Trek, blah, blah, blah. Ended up being the best thing for the Star Trek world.
Yeah, exactly.
Because all the ideas that he had were, I guess they were dated. And
he like started the train really well, but other people need to pick that up. Yeah, I just read Patrick Stewart's book, and that was I really like that. Yeah,
it started with a P, Dr. Pulsar. No, it was Dr.
I didn't say it because I couldn't think of it.
Dr. Palazzi. It was something like that.
Something in there. Yeah.
It was something like that.
I'll figure it out. I'll put it in the show notes because I want to know. How about you? What did you love?
I liked Star Trek: Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
I liked anything that had, sci-fi because of the storytelling. I loved things that also related, like The Fresh Prince and House. I loved House.
Oh, House! I don't think about House, but it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
If you actually watch House, because now that we watch things, you're not just watching it. It's like, oh, this is happening. You're watching it, and you're like, oh, that choice in acting was brilliant. Or
he's so good.
So good.
Yeah, and the relationships are crisp and
it's amazing.
They say so much in so little, and you're invested.
And also sometimes when I'm watching something, I'm like, how did they remember all those words? Like, that's
especially with the medical stuff.
Because it's not theirs. When we watch a show, the same way when people listen to songs, they tend to think that it took Drake 3 minutes to make a 3-minute song. No, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of things to remember.
Yeah.
And then they're playing a part of a person that they are not. Yeah. Remembering all the words that were written for them by someone else, and then merging the two, and especially if you have medical or legal jargon that goes in between, and that not being your expertise.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just
like saying the word homeopathic for no reason.
I did.
It's not something we do normal.
Just as like a day gig when I was in New York, I would act in law firms, and I would memorize pages of things so that the first year lawyers could practice interviewing me.
Oh, wow.
And so you had to know the legal terms and the medical terms well enough to be able to say them convincingly at the drop of a hat. And that was one of the most challenging things ever.
See, that's amazing.
It's incredible, but so hard.
And I've been like, yeah, you know what? I'm guilty. It's not. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I did.
That's funny.
I did it. I just would have forgot.
Yeah, it's stressful.
Yeah.
You'll notice I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. You were teaching for so long.
Yeah, I was teaching for 8 years at AMDA in Hollywood, acting and directing.
What do you feel about the next generation? This new generation of Hollywood hopefuls who are coming in. Do you think that they're less informed, more informed, they're better, they're not as good, they don't take it as seriously?
I actually am really lucky because I got to work with some people who were not entitled and were working really hard and had like big dreams, but also the work ethic to go behind it. And like walking here today, I got to pass a billboard for something that one of my former students is starting.
No.
Yeah. And so it's just incredible to have, it gives me chills that people that are in their 20s are killing it.
Have you ever hit one of them up and been like, hey, great job. By the way, if they're looking for.
I try not to be use them, but I do. If I see people that are doing good things, I try to connect them with people.
Sure.
Or, I did a reading of my pilot last year, and there was a young woman that I was just like, oh, this part would be great for her. And I had her read for it. I didn't know she was at the time I was asking her, she was cast in Wicked, the movie.
Oh, she's killing it.
Starring in that. She's Marissa. She's Nessa Rose in that. So she's shooting with Ariana Grande and happened to be on a break.
That's
so she was like,
sweet.
oh yeah, I'll come to your reading.
That's so nice of her, and didn't even bring it up, and then did it.
It's crazy.
That's so funny. You're like, yeah. So I asked my good friend Angelina Jolie. I didn't even know she'd been in stuff. Oh my gosh.
Turns out she's famous. Yeah.
I was like, I thought you were busy adopting kids. I didn't even know.
She was.
Yeah.
So she didn't do it. So no, I think there's I think it's a weird time. You know, it's like less traditional of a path, but it is for us too, you know? And so I think there's definitely a path for them. They just have to figure it out.
The last name was Dr. Pulaski.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it was.
You're good.
Dr.
Thank
Pulaski.
you.
Yeah, I would have never left without that. I would have like...
I mean, I was like, we're going to look it up.
Yeah, I need to know. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I watched a lot of like Star Trek and then movies. I love musicals because I'm a singer. I also loved like things that I shouldn't have been watching that weren't bad, but like Cheers and Night Court and like funny shows for a 7-year-old girl.
Brilliant.
Like
They're brilliant shows.
Yeah.
Brilliant shows. Did you ever watch My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
Yeah.
Because I mean, since you like musicals.
Yeah, she's Rachel Bloom. Yeah. A friend of mine works with her as her accompanist on Broadway.
Oh,
so
that's
she's
nice. Rachel's a good friend. She's very cool.
She's
very sweet.
Next time you see her, tell her I admire everything she does.
Well, yeah, because I know she's in that. Her, another good friend of mine, Danny Jolis, who is a stand-up comedian, very funny. They do this, you know, they're in that world. So I thought, you know, since you love musicals, best musical.
I mean, I'm a sucker.
Best musical movie.
Okay, I'm gonna get hate for this, but I love Moulin Rouge.
It has to be Moulin Rouge. What do you mean? The Love Medley is one of the best songs of all time. The Love Medley. And then at the end, she's like, "You're gonna be bad for business." It's like, yo, you know how amazing? I literally play that like at least once a week. Oh, Moulin Rouge is so good.
It's so good.
You know, it's so good. All of them did amazing in that.
Also, beautiful people.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor.
Oh my gosh.
At their best.
Yeah, and it's
so good.
It's got all of the like juicy stuff I like it's lush and it's like the dark romantic gothic kind of stuff, but it's also got a lot of fun and silliness and like good relationships and storytelling and like weird characters that a lot of stories don't go there, and it lets you like follow an epic love story in the middle of all of that.
And it's beautiful too. What's his name? Baz Luhrmann? What's the guy's
Baz
name?
Luhrmann.
Yeah, whatever. That guy, because he did the Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio, which was so poppin' that I wore Hawaiian shirts when I was like 6 for like a whole year because of this guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to play Radiohead in the background and just walk places slowly. And my parents were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, you know, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let our lips do as pilgrims and like I was like, oh, like
you're
why
like doing
Shakespeare? Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Moulin Rouge, that it's just visually, never mind anything else, just visually, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they killed it.
Yeah.
Then the songs to use, I think it was the first one that used like modern songs
like that
in a musical.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else had done that.
Yeah.
So it made it so appealing to everyone. Why would you get hate? Is the musical community like, no, not Moulin Rouge, you have to choose Chicago or whatever?
I think there's just like a
stigma?
There's a little bit of a stigma of things that are like kind of coming from that popular world. And like I'm a classically trained musician. Like there are things I love. Like the Piazza is very classical based. And I think it's a gorgeous story and stuff, but there's a lot of passion for the kind of Sondheim-y, kind of very lyrical thing, and I love the like big fucking emotions and stories and the sweepingness of it.
So good. Also, another thing that I could never do. Like everything we're talking about is stuff that I'm like, wow, I could just never do these things. I couldn't do Moulin Rouge. I would just not be as, like everyone was so good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could be, maybe I could have been in Star Trek. Which, by the way, my least favorite character, Wesley Crusher. I just never liked Wesley as much as everyone's like, Wesley! I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I never liked Wesley.
Yeah.
Love me some Whoopi Goldberg, just in general.
My gosh, I love her,
I love Whoopi. She's my first
Sister
crush.
Act.
I just love Whoopi Goldberg.
A friend of mine got to work with her because he directed, he music directed Sister Act on Broadway, and so he was like got to like coach her singing, and he was like, it was incredible.
Of course, Whoopi Goldberg, she's so amazing. She didn't even have eyebrows, and none of us questioned, hey Whoopi, why don't you have eyebrows? It's just she doesn't have eyebrows, and
I never even noticed until like later somebody points it out, and then you go back and you're like, she never had them.
Eyebrows.
We didn't need them.
We don't need them.
Then she's incredible.
She married Ted Danson from Cheers. That was a real thing that happened.
Like, great comedy crossover, though.
Yeah, it was a cameo. It was great.
Yeah, that's got to be a weird dinner table.
Yeah.
Are you ready to be confident and comfortable in front of a camera? Well, my name is Jessica Payne, and I would love to help you. I'm an actor, acting coach, and the host of the Creators Cafe video podcast. I have helped thousands of people to learn the skills of a Hollywood actor to be more comfortable in their body, voice, and mindset whenever you press record. So if you're an entrepreneur, a business person who needs to be in front of the camera, or you want to get into digital content creation, I would love to offer you one-on-one on-camera performance coaching so that you feel like when you press record, you can be your best self. Check out the link below for more details, and I can't wait to work with you. Let's have fun together. How did the stand-up path happen for you? Because you were like going to school for economics, you were getting your law degree. How did that path happen?
So after I wasn't planning on being a comedian at all. I wasn't necessarily planning on being a lawyer either, but just comedy was not on my radar whatsoever. And actually it's something that I talk about because I think it's why representation for everybody is so important. Because here I am in my last year of law school trying to figure out what I'm gonna do next. And I turned on television and I had Fuse Network in DC, which Fuse is like Canadian MTV. So I have no idea why I had this channel, but I have every channel person and I still kind of am, which is kind of, even though I don't use them. So it's better to have and not need than to need and not have. As I'm watching Fuse Network, I see this comedian, Mikey Winfield, who's actually a very good friend of mine now. He is this caramel complected, beautifully, just like wonderful smile, just this energy that radiates from him, comedian who does jokes, about himself and others and social commentary. And he would do jokes and then present a music video. And I literally saw this at 22 and was like, or 23 at the time. And I was like, if this guy can do this, I can do this. Like, it's someone who kind of looks like me doing something that I think I kind of can do. And that's really what got me into comedy. Wow. Is literally watching Mikey Winfield, of all people, on his first television programming thing that he ever got.
Have you told him that?
I have told him that.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And recently he almost won America's Got Talent because of his comedy.
Jeez.
So, and he's part of their tour, like he was the Golden Buzzer and this and that. But he's got this beautiful smile and just, it was so compelling. Yeah. But at the same time, he made it look so easy that I was like, if he can do this, I can do this. And so I made a move to come to LA to go to the Laugh Factory where he was supposed to be doing a guest spot that weekend. He didn't end up showing up, but at that point I met the owner of the Laugh Factory, and that is how I got onto my Laugh Factory spots from then on. And then I never let go. And it was my last year of school, and I used to fly back and forth every single week to get to my show. Wow. I would fly in Monday, I would leave Washington, D.C. area around 5:30, get to LA around 8:30, get to the Laugh Factory by 10, because it was like an hour and a half bus ride trek. The bus system here isn't great. Got there, would do the show, and then right after I have to get back to the airport to fly back by 1 so I could be in DC in the morning and get to my class. That is a real thing that I did for about 10 months.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. And like, now anybody who's driving down Sunset Boulevard and looks at the Laugh Factory will see your face because you have a residency and have
exactly like
then.
the billboards and this, and it's really cool because it says that you can do it. So many times do we like look around, we go, oh, I wish someone would do something about that, for example. And it's like, wait, look in a mirror. You are someone. You can do something about that. You can manifest your own destiny, and not in the manifest destiny colonial way, but in the idea of manifesting destiny for self, in which you are the master of your own universe. Yeah. Things we learned as kids. Watch He-Man. He was the master of the universe. Well, you are He-Man or She-Man or whoever you want to be, man.
I was very into She-Ra.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, that was the idea. And here we are just living the dream, which, you grow up and you realize not only is it possible, the dream kind of sucks. We should have become doctor. Your parents were right. Like, listen, ultimately the goal is everyone else, listen to your parents. They are right, okay? So, but that's the thing. I wouldn't change it at all. Yeah. But that's what got me into comedy. I was always like I was always a smart ass and being funny in school and class and this and that and on teams and to the coach and everything. But then I, utilized it towards a career. Yeah. And now I get to be a smart ass for pay.
That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
And you're very smart.
I appreciate that.
Very smart. And I mean, half of why I love your comedy. It's a part of why I love your comedy.
Well, thank you. And the other part's because I'm an ass, and that's what sells it. I'm a smart ass.
Smart
boom.
and ass, half and half. No, it's because your comedy is so smart that it's invigorating. It like sets the audience on fire. Like, it's funny. It has to be funny or it wouldn't work. It's funny, but it's sneaky smart funny.
I like that.
And I also like that you come across as kind of you have this persona that's kind of a like narcissistic jackass.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's what I'm pushing. That's what I push. I'm a douche. Like, the idea is this. I'm a douchebag doing this.
Yeah, like he wears a robe and a hat with his name.
Yeah.
He's currently wearing
everything.
A shirt with his name and a chain with the name.
Pushing the brand.
Pushing the brand. And so you go in expecting something, and then you kind of cut it off at the knees. And you actually are one of the most loving people I know, one of the most thoughtful and open-minded people I know. And you do it all under the guise of being like a douchebag.
That's the point. I'm trying to break social constructs. And you're like a Trojan horse. That's what I like. I'm breaking social constructs. That Trojan horse, actually, that analogy is exactly how I describe it. Is that it's the Trojan horse of comedy. You go in, everyone's expecting this, and then you just turn left.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, but
we're over here.
Exactly. And that's what I like, is not everything is what it seems. Mm-hmm. You know, expecting unexpected. Mm-hmm. And that's what real comedy is about. Good comedy makes you laugh, but great comedy makes you think. And that's ultimately what made me gravitate towards comedy the most, is the idea that our philosophers in the modern day are just our best comedians. Mm-hmm. That's really the way it really works. Who's made you think more about race than Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle? Who's made you think more about the LGBTQIA rights than Wanda Sykes? Mm-hmm. You know? Who has made you think of family life more than Louis C.K. pre-ejaculation in the green room? Like, the idea is, these are the people that made us think of these things, you know?
Yeah.
And now, it's not just that you relate to me, it's through me. You get to relate through me. And hopefully I get to show you about things that maybe you didn't think about, or perspectives you maybe didn't think of.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone finds this middle ground.
Well, and you have this really incredible way of putting to words things that I know I feel and I haven't been able to articulate yet. And I am very confident in how I see it, but I don't see anybody saying it, because people are very divided right now, and there's a lot of like camps of thought. And I appreciate that you are not afraid to go in the middle zone and just say what you actually think. And it's shocking to hear someone who is so committed to free speech, but it's great, and it's really inspiring.
And also it's validating to all of us, because most of the times you'll realize a lot more people think things, and we never talk about these things.
Yeah.
Either we're embarrassed in some way, or we're not sure, or it's just, you know, it's something that we feel like should be private, even though we don't know if it's supposed to be, or whatever it is. Yeah. Or as you stated, there are things that you have felt, but you haven't really taken the time, which I'm confident that you would be able to, or weren't able to articulate that way.
Yeah.
And that's actually what music does too, right? Music takes a lot of things we have felt, and it puts a music track to it, a theme song to it, and now we know it's real, whether it's being in love or feeling helpless or hopeless or whatever it is. Well, that's what comedy is supposed to do too. And as Chappelle says, like, very eloquently, when a musician goes on stage, they play an instrument and the sound they make is music. Well, as comedians, when we go on stage, our instrument is the audience and the music we make is laughter. Oh. And that's how you know you're making the music. Jeez. So that's what I'm trying to do. And hopefully making people think and be a little more open-minded and a little more understanding and tolerant in the meantime, without being preachy. More
and
reachy.
That's why it works. Ooh,
yeah.
Not preachy, but reachy. I've never heard that. That's really good.
Yeah,
That's really good. Yeah.
Trademark.
Copyright. Yeah. I lost my train of thought because that was really good. Yeah, because nobody wants to be preached at. But
no one does.
No, nobody wants that. But you're finding a way to like get the wisdom through the laughter. It kind of reminds me, like, I think the philosopher thing that you said, but it also, you know, in like an olden day court, like the really smart jester that is the only person that's able to say the thing
to the king.
Yeah. And I think you're able to twist things like that in a really incredible way.
And get people, you'll see, like in the crowds, a lot of people, different backgrounds, people who typically might not even be in the same place together, come to a lot of my shows and they're in the same place. In the height of everything that's going on in the Middle East and Israel and Palestine, I had a show for Netflix as a joke, where it was Israeli and Jewish and Palestinian and Muslim comedian, the lineup. And Arabs, because there were Arab Christians, which people tend to forget exist. Put them all on the same lineup. Walking in, the audience was so tense. People were sitting, they were divided, they weren't sitting next to each other. They were looking like, why is this person here? Why is that person there? And it was packed. And yet by the end of the show, people were hugging, they were apologizing outside. Like, I remember there was a woman in hijab, and she hugged a woman in a shadel, which is what a lot of Orthodox Jewish women wear to cover their hair, which is like another wig, and they were hugging, and it's like apologizing to each other. And it's like, first of all, you guys aren't even what caused this, okay? There's no but just understanding, like, I never thought this, and I never thought that, and that's really what it's about, you know? So when you're in a room full of people and a tragedy occurs, you're crying. And you're even in a room full of people, you're still crying alone. But if you're in a room full of people and comedy occurs, you're laughing and everyone's typically laughing together, you know? And that's the thing about laughter, is it really brings people together.
Yeah, it's a really unifying force.
Yeah.
And I think your audiences are so mixed culturally, and you get to talk about so many different things that it just takes people out of that comfort zone and makes them kind of re-examine things, which I love.
It does. It helps my background. I'm half Persian, half black. And then on my dad's side, his family's Muslim and Zoroastrian. And then my mom's side, they're Christian and Jewish. So you have like so much Venn diagram inclusivity. Yeah. And I'm just right there in that middle. It's like, are you? Yes. Are you? Yes. Are you? You know, like next year I was planning on becoming trans. I just feel like that's the last thing. Just yes. And so it's like, I try to bring everyone together. That's what it's really about. That's what comedy's supposed to be about. Freedom of speech, pushing thoughts, pushing the envelope, broadening horizons through absurdity, and bringing everyone together. That's really what real comedy is supposed to be about.
I completely agree, and I love that you do it.
Yeah, that's the last vestige of freedom of speech. We're watching it happen. People are getting canceled and this and woke culture and conservative minds and anything you add, these echo chambers of thoughts, that's not what it's supposed to be about. If you don't believe in the freedom of speech, for those you disdain, you don't believe in the freedom of speech. And that's where we're at with it. Like, if you don't like something, just leave, you know? I don't know. But there should be room for the comedy. That's why governments go after the comedians first.
Yeah.
They go after the cartoons, the political cartoonists, the art form, because that art form is the most dangerous to them. Because it's something that you can listen to. Michael Jackson's music united more people than every GS whatever conference that they've ever had in the world. Anything NATO and United Nations has ever done. Just playing Beat It, you know? Just playing Bad. Who's bad? And like everyone in the world just listening to that, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, who's bad? You are, Michael. Stop touching kids, whatever it is. But just unified, you know?
Yeah.
Unifying people. And then after that is comedy, just making people laugh.
Yeah.
And not punching down, not punching and low-hanging fruit and picking on people and races and ethnicities, but like enjoying it. Don't make fun of, have fun with, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good way to say that. And you've talked really intelligently about kind of that gray zone, I think, of like that as a comedian, you get to say whatever you want, and there's consequences to saying what you say, of like, you know, if you say something that like really does those things, that punches down, or says something that's really offensive,
which
like
should be maybe,
you know, like there is like people can have a response to that, but that's part of freedom of speech.
That's what it is.
It is so interesting.
Exactly, that's what it is. Like, we don't have to do this. We get to do this. So if you put yourself out there, don't be surprised that people are going to have things to say about it.
Yeah.
Right? You get celebrities who are like, oh, stop taking my picture, paparazzi. Like, what do you mean you wanted to be famous? Well, welcome to being famous. This
Yeah.
is, how come when you wanted to be famous, you wish the paparazzi were there and now you've made it, there's paparazzi here and you're annoyed. Like, this is all part of it. I do want to say though, when it comes to being canceled, no comedian has actually been canceled for something they've said. Not a single comedian. Now, people will bring up, what about Kevin Hart? Kevin Hart made some tweets that at the time seemed possibly homophobic because they were like punching down on the gay community, which at that time was something that most of the world did at that time. Like, that was the terms that we would use, because we forget that the world does change. You know, I don't get mad at Paula Deen for using the N-word in the 60s, you know? Like, that's what happened in the 60s. But if she did it now, it'd be a problem. Even though her pies are so good, I might forgive her. They're like, oh, but her pies. But it would be problematic. So Kevin Hart, but here's the thing, Kevin Hart, the comedian, did not get canceled. Kevin Hart, the Disney brand, got canceled. Kevin Hart, the Jumanji 14, like, hosting the Oscars is not like typically what an average comedian would do. You can go do a bar show in Topeka for $40 and no one will stop you from anything. It's like, if you want to be this brand, you have to be maybe more culturally or like societally just woke or just aware in those terms. But typically speaking, no comedian gets canceled for anything. However, should there be consequences for comedians who punch down? If the people don't like it, yeah, there should be consequences. If you're saying things to be that person or they're just not funny. Like, the point of a comedian is to be funny. If people don't think you're funny, it's not, the problem isn't the people, it's your lack of funny.
Yeah.
So be more funny. But then when it comes to the audience, there's also a responsibility. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. But on the flip side, just because you're offensive doesn't mean you're funny. There's a fine line in between. And that's where I hope to find my comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is interesting to me that you kind of push the offensive narrative for kind of really sweet purposes.
Yeah, I'm offensive for you to be like, I don't want to be that offensive. That's such a great point. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be that offensive. That's kind of what I do.
You like lead with the thorns when actually you're a rose.
Exactly. That's really great. But yeah, that's the thing I'm taking that. But that's the thing, like, yeah, where you're like, oh, wait, oh, sheesh. That's what I hope to do, at least. That's my...
Well, and because I just come from such a different place, because I'm a super empathetic, sensitive softie, and so like your model just does not work for this brand.
Like you would never say, but that's the thing.
So it's like, that's why it's so exciting and invigorating to watch your stuff, because I'm like, actually, I think we're kind of coming from the same place. We're saying
the same thing, just in different ways.
Totally different ways, but I love it.
And because I say it the way I do, I feel like it just reaches more ears, because it's even reaching the people who didn't want to hear it to begin with.
Right.
They're on board with the thorns, and then they're now drawn to the rose, because I've led that's right, we hate those people. But actually, so it's like, that's kind of, I'm hoping that's what gets people in. It's the spoonful of medicine that helps the sugar go down, because everything's so sugar-coated. People just live in echo chambers now. In their bubbles, and social media is not helping. The algorithm basically just shows you what you want to see to begin with. And so...
And what you wanted to see, like, in the past. So you're not getting that new information.
Exactly. So I'm hoping that the way I create breaks the algorithm, because they don't know what, like, wait, I didn't know he was going to say this.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Okay, so right now you're doing a lot of stand-up. So you've got the Laugh Factory. I just got to see you at Flappers with Maz Jobrani. It was a fantastic show.
So glad you came.
So fun, thank you. You also have done some acting work. So I got to see you in the Dane Cook piece. So funny.
Honestly, if this was 2004, my career would have been so on. If I was in that, it was like Seth Green, Dane Cook, like everybody, I would have been like, if that was 2004, I would have been so in right now. I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's a real thing. Timing is everything in Hollywood.
Yeah. So it's just interesting, because you're like getting to work with these incredible world-class comedians regularly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What's that been like?
It's the reason why I say it's crazy. No, by the way, anyone who's mentally ill, you're probably not watching this. Let's be honest. So crazy.
Nah, you're on the ride with me. It's fine. But if you're in Hollywood, right? We've already established, welcome to the club, actually. It's fine.
But it's people that I watched or knew of or whoever, and now I'm like just friends with them. Like a Dane Cook. Here I am one day watching Good Luck Chuck, you know, and being like, oh, this is so funny-ish, you know? And then you're there and it's like, you're with Dane Cook and you're like, oh my gosh, and Dave Chappelle and all these people. And then also, so on one side, like Rob Schneider, Adam Sandler is like you know these, I knew Bob Saget, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
You grow up like watching Full House, and then you know Bob Saget in real life, you know? And he's like, seeing where you're at. It's really interesting. On the other hand, you know what else is interesting is watching people become Dane Cook and Dave Chappelle and Bob Saget. Is watching Matt Rife, who I started out with, you know, watching
who was in the show with you.
17-year-old who was in that movie with me. 16, 17-year-old Matt Rife hitting comedy clubs, pushing it. And then, you know, one year at the most he's making $55,000 doing comedy, and then the very next year he made $55 million doing comedy. It's watching Tiffany Haddish and knowing when she was living in her car and going through all the turmoil she was, and then watching her be on Girls Trip and then just take that ride, or Gerard Carmichael or Chris Redd, or these people who are like friends, and watching them just become, you know, the biggest comedians or the biggest this and that on the planet. It's very surreal.
Yeah.
And seeing the process in front of your eyes, a London Hughes, and then she's now hosting like this show on Netflix and so on. It's very interesting. And then also hearing their complaints, you know, and hearing things that they say and telling me that sometimes Hollywood doesn't give them their fair shake. And you're like, but you're XYZ. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
It's just a very interesting ride.
Yeah. Do you see anything that the people that do kind of take that next step have in common?
I see that it all happens within due time. And I also see that if you're not prepared for it, right? It's no overnight. There's no such thing as overnight celebrity, even for the Hawk Tuah girl, okay? There's no overnight celebrity. So even Hawk Tuah had been Hawk Tuahing for years before that chance came up. You know how many Hawk Tuahs she's given? You know what I'm saying? She's been Hawk Tuahing, and now the next guy's just waiting for her to Hawk Tuah. Just like, yo, where's the Hawk Tuah? So even her with her celebrity where everyone's like upset about it, it's like, there's no chance. It's not just, oh, it happens. It's opportunity meets preparation. These people are prepared. Everyone, even the person that wins the lottery, it's very rare. It's the person who played the lottery for the first time. You've been playing lottery for years, 20 years, then you finally win. You even need a practice when it comes to the lottery. So all this stuff takes practice. That's why things like acting class, being around it, going to it, studying it, examining it. There's no other business where people would just be like, you know, oh, I just decided today to be a doctor. Do you think I'd be a surgeon? Just let me do the surgery really quick.
Oh my God.
But people will ask me to be like, hey, can I go up at the Laugh Factory? I'm thinking about doing comedy. Like, this is the NBA of comedy. What have you done to get here? You need to be, It's like, no, it's not how it works. No. We make it look easy.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect in all of it.
You definitely make it look easy. How do you go from no set to what we see that's so polished? How does that process look for you?
So the process really goes down like this. Threefold. First of all, I'm always writing. I'm always with the little notebook. I should even write more things down because I'll think of more things than I write down, but I'm always writing. And then number two, when I'm on stage, I'm in the moment. So that's where the great crowd work and things come into play. Yeah. But I do have my standard set. So I have jokes so I can weave into them. More importantly, if something goes awry, I can always go back to this. I have that. And then lastly, it really is finding your own voice on stage. So I have my own, what I hope to be unique perspective where you're watching comedy, you'll be like, oh, that's a Tehran thing to say. You'll feel the same way about Kevin Hart. You'll be like, oh, that's a Kevin Hart thing to say. That's a that's an Ellen DeGeneres thing to say. That's a Roseanne Barr thing to say. Whatever it is, there's always a way to say things. That's a Monique way to say. So I'm hoping that I'm as unique as they are in that way.
Yeah.
And that's the things. These are the 3 elements of comedy. Is to find your own voice, be in the moment, having a good time, having fun, if that's your style, whatever that style is, finding your own voice, your own style, and then always write, always be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. I always ask my guests for a creator's challenge. What would you have my audience do?
Okay, so this is a game that I play all the time.
Okay.
It's called Awkward Conversations.
Oh, God.
When you and a friend are out and about and you're like standing at a stoplight, 2 people, it's Jessica and I just at a stoplight, and a third person who we don't know walks up. As a comedian, I try to say the most awkward thing possible. Okay?
To me or to them?
To you.
Okay.
But knowing they're within earshot of hearing it, and you can't break, you can't laugh, you have to yes and the situation and try to top my awkward. And we have to go back and forth in this on the spot, spur of the moment conversation that's absurd, to see which one of us will break first and when the third person will break completely.
Oh my God.
And be like, what the? And then see how that goes.
Yeah. I'm breaking.
Yeah.
Imagining it.
Oh yeah. You have to go
oh my gosh.
as far left as possible.
Yeah.
Maybe anything. And you get, I guess, points for being more creative, you know?
Yeah.
So it's easy to just be vulgar. How do you do or say something that's awkward enough for the person without being vulgar?
Yeah.
Without being vulgar or being funny if you are vulgar. It's like, it's not just like, oh, did you do anal? It's like, oh my gosh, so they took the hamster right out of your anus? Like,
you gotta elevate it.
You have to step it up. Yeah, it has to push the boundary.
Okay.
And be like, yeah, but my mom wasn't happy because it was my little brother's hamster,
Yeah.
And you just going, and that person who just came in has no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They've now, entered a conversation.
Yeah.
And then if you want to take it up a notch, what you have to do is play a game in which you don't say anything. It's so vague that a person can take it the wrong way without you meaning it. And like, where if they were like, what? And you'd be like, we're talking about doorknobs, bro. Like,
yeah.
Or you're like, yeah, and then I touched it and it was so big. And then oh yeah, I loved it. It was thick. And they're like looking, you're like, doorknobs, my guy. What did you think we were talking about?
Yeah.
If you want to be elevated. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the absurd brain working.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also puts you in that that zone of what for me would be discomfort.
Exactly.
And still have to yes and stay present.
100%.
Yeah.
Comedy's about discomfort. Being on stage, everyone, sharks and plane crashes and all these things, number one fear, talking in public. Speaking in public. Public speaking is the number one fear. You're on stage, but now let's add the element, not only are you speaking, but now you have to make sure there's a reaction, and it's laughter of all things.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it's a mindset, it's a focus, it's very difficult. It's like being a musician. We're learning, we're also doing the same things, writing rhythm and beats and stances and coming up with choruses and all the same things, just like a song. Which is why when you go out to a comedy show, sometimes comedians, a lot of times do the same material. Not only are we perfecting it, it's a song we wrote. You wouldn't expect Rihanna to be on stage and have a new song every time she hit the stage. Same thing with comedians. But more importantly, we're taking social observations or jokes and we're putting them together. So it's the same thing if, you and I walked by like a stone, we would just see a rock. Michelangelo would see David, the thinker. Someone would see the thinker, like Rodin would just be like chip, 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 and chip away. That's what we're chiseling away on stage until we perfect it. And then it goes into the statue of our comedy special.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we go on to the next.
Wow. When you get on stage, what mindset do you try to be in?
When I'm on stage, I am in this no expectations mindset. That's what I find works best for me. Okay. Where I I'm not a caterer. I'm not catering to the crowd. I'm comedianing for the crowd.
Okay.
So I have a point of view, and I'm getting this point of view across.
Okay.
But
And so
just
as
happens
long
to
as
be
you get
jokes.
it across, you've
Exactly.
succeeded.
That's it. I'm not catering, oh,
Okay.
there's these people in the crowd that I'm going to talk about this or that.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm doing. I'm going to just do my comedy.
Yeah.
And hopefully it relates to everyone.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's got that virtuosity of the musician. And I have seen you do different sets, and I see the kind of the bookmarks that give you the structure, but then what's in between evolves over time, and I love to see that.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
ultimately I know
beautiful.
where I want to end.
Oh,
so I
that's
know,
helpful.
like
You
I
know
have
where
like
you're
the
going.
end. I have like this, a bigger joke for the end. So I'll get there,
Yeah.
But sometimes how you get there, you never know. And especially if you interact with the crowd,
Yeah.
you never know what the response the crowd's going to give.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because just a couple years ago, pre-COVID, crowd work was kind of frowned upon in the comedy world. People were like, oh, well, then you don't have material. And then slowly they started recognizing the genius. Even comedy is evolving. Stand-up comedy is an American art form. It started here, and now it's, gone global. But even here, it's evolving. What crowds used to might get offended or might attack you on stage, now they're laughing because they understand it's comedy.
And they expect it.
And they want it. They
Yeah.
don't just expect it. They're like looking for that.
Yeah.
So crowd work, writing, having these brilliant jokes. Like there's a comedian, Neil Brennan. He's an amazing writer.
So
He's just
good.
so smart. Just writes these great ideas and words that are like so much so that as a comedian, if you ever notice comedians, if you ever see a comedian at a club, they're never laughing. Okay? The most we'll do is like, because we're studying other comedians. And the biggest compliment a comedian can give another comedian is when you're like, I should have thought of that.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one. That's when you're like frustrated. You're like, I should have thought of that.
Yep. Yeah. That always feels right for me whenever I'm kind of jealous of someone's idea or how they executed it. I know that's what I really care
Yeah, it's
about.
like, sheesh.
Yeah.
Because it reminds you of how much you still need to grow.
Yeah.
As well as, it gives them respect. The respect that they hit that on the head.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always satisfying to see like mastery in action.
Always.
It's just frustrating that you're like, I'm not there.
Why am I not there? Exactly. And that's the same thing when you see people who are your peers or even in your surroundings, they're on things and you're like, why? It's not that you don't want them to not be on things. You also want to be on things, whether
We should
shows
be there
or
with Chris
exactly. Exactly. That delusion.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes back to.
Yeah. And I think we could be. So
One day, still a long journey.
Yeah.
Or at least, until 2029 when the world ends. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? 2029.
we can have both things.
Yeah. Like, why can't I? Have you ever just seen someone win the lottery and you're just like, why couldn't that have been me? Like, what's the rhyme and rhythm here? What's the reason?
Yeah.
I could have won.
Yeah. I'm delusional enough that I'm like, oh, no. I just haven't won yet.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So I'm definitely in your club.
Exactly. That's where we're at with it. Oh.
All right. So how can people find you?
Find me all across the board at I am Tehran. IAMTEHRAN. It's literally, if you don't know how to spell it, not only is it the capital of Iran, but just watch Fox News. Literally, they talk about my name every day on Fox News. I don't know why. Every single day. They just blame Tehran. Literally, that's what they do.
They're keeping your SEO numbers up.
That's how it
Like,
works. It's just not to me, which is, I'm buried under the city.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And come see you in person at the Laugh
At the Laugh Factory. Every Thursday, I have a show there. Plus, any other times, I'm coming to a city near you. So make sure to look for it. But more importantly, I hope to see a lot of you on stage.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a stand-up comedian in all of us, Like, I wonder what you would do on stage. What would you talk about?
That's a great question. I feel like it would be all of the things that I don't say.
That's the excuse of a comedian.
And I think it would be a lot of work to get them out, probably.
You'd be surprised. Once you start,
It just goes.
Then you just have to make sure how to make it funny. Like sometimes we'll blurt something and we're like, oh, that look of anger is not what I was going for.
Yeah. I would start with my fear of Instapots and then go from there.
That's a great way to start. Great place to start.
Yeah. Well, cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're the best. Join the community and share your creative challenges on Instagram and Facebook at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. And also check out my website, kikalabs.com, KIKALABS.com, to sign up for the mailing list so you always know when a new podcast is released, and to check out my coaching and digital courses to help you be a more confident and joyful creator.